Hey everybody, my name is Lonnie Kennedy, and I am about to give an informative speech over cannabis. Um, Here's a quote from a Mr. Lester Grinspoon. Cannabis is remarkably safe. Although not harmless, it is surely less toxic than most of the conventional medicines it could replace if it were legally available. Despite its use by over millions of people over thousands of years, cannabis has not caused one overdose death. Lester Grinspoon. The main point of this speech is just to show you all that how old cannabis is in relation just to the world, and how it both actively affects our planet and the people in many different ways. I believe I am a pretty credible resource, as I do a lot of science classes. I love science. It's one of my favorite things. From seeing how things grow in the environment to how they affect people and anything in between is really lovely and it's very interesting. And I can pick out very good experiments to use in my research. Since I do experiments myself, I can find easily discreditable researches. Yeah. But yeah, cannabis has a very old and unique history, and it has shown many interesting qualities time and time again when it comes to how it affects the planet that it grows on, how different forms of cannabis can be derived into their own unique forms with different traits that affect people in different ways, what cannabis can be used to build, and what kind of treatments are possible using medical cannabis. Now let's take a stroll to 2500 BC. Marijuana has a very old and rich history, and it is thought to be born in Asia. A Chinese emperor named Xin Nung in 2737 BC found that cannabis had psychoactive properties and used it as an anesthetic for his war veterans. In ancient India, they believed cannabis helped their own culture with anxiety. And finally, the old Germans and Vikings used cannabis for childbirth, for the moms, and for tooth pains. And it was popular in the ancient times in Asia, but with war and trade, cannabis was quickly taken from the Asian culture and driven to the Indo-Europe area, as well as Iran and Anatolia in 2000 BC. It eventually made its way to the Silk Road, which is one of the most popular and active trading routes in all of history. And from there it was introduced to Africa, Greece, and Egypt. And it eventually made its way to everywhere in the world. But there are actually two different types of cannabis. And the main difference is THC. Marijuana has a THC percentage, tetrahydrochloride, of 0.3% or higher by dry weight. Marijuana is different than hemp because it has psychoactive effects when used. And unlike hemp, marijuana is illegal in a vast majority of the countries in the world, yet is the most consumed illegal drug in the United States. Marijuana is also a Schedule I drug in the United States, putting it in the same category as heroin and peyote, and above certain drugs like methamphetamines. Hemp, on the other hand, has a THC percentage of 0.3 or lower. Hemp breathes in 4 times the amount of carbon dioxide that trees do, so it is better for air pollution. They're treated very, very differently. It's not grown as a medicine. Hemp is mostly grown for its natural fibers because it could be made into very useful and durable objects such as skateboards, plane frames, car frames, clothes and jeans, and paper. And because hemp can grow year-round without pesticides, it makes for a very easy crop to maintain. As a medicine, cannabis is very effective at treating certain ailments. 9% of the children who use cannabis that have seizures do not develop or do not have seizures later on in their life. Chronic pain is also an important condition that cannabis helps treat. More than 600,000 Americans a year use cannabis to treat chronic pain. Canada has performed a trial with rats that had bad arthritis, and cannabis helped them to begin moving again and ease their joint pain. 79% of elderly Colorado residents say that cannabis has helped them with their chronic pain. Another issue or effect that cannabis can help is insomnia. More than 1 in 3 people in a survey tried cannabis for sleep, and 86% of those people that tried it said that their insomnia was alleviated. And when treating insomnia, researchers at Palo Alto University say that CBD had more of an effect than THC. So even if one did not like the psychoactive effects that marijuana could produce, they could take CBD alternatives. And finally, it helps out with cancer patients. Cancer patients deal with many things such as nausea, lack of appetite, loss of weight, and vomiting. Cannabis can treat every one of these effects whilst not fighting the issue itself, which is the cancer. Coupled with things like radiation or other cancer treatments, marijuana can help circumvent the issues that these treatments bring on, working as a double medicine. Little seizure baby with some cannabis. Okay. And although cannabis does have a lot of positive properties, we cannot be remiss to remind ourselves the negatives that could become of using cannabis. Things such as memory loss and slower reflexes are definitely side effects of using cannabis. It is addictive, but however, whenever you go through withdrawal, it is nothing more than a mild discomfort, and there is no possible way of dying, unlike heroin withdrawal. Marijuana was made illegal in the early 1900s because Mexicans started to immigrate into America. And Mexicans also had their own marijuana called marijuana with an H. And Americans at this time knew the marijuana drug as cannabis. However, the different term, as well as the Mexicans' differentness in general, instilled fear in them, and marijuana was banned as a way to demonize the immigrants. So in conclusion, cannabis is a very interesting plant that affects us all in many different ways. It is very unique when compared to other wildlife and vegetation, and it was some of the first agriculture cultivated by humans. Just as a fun fact, in the early colonies in America, you could actually pay your taxes with hemp instead of your monetary currency, which was pretty neat. The multiple forms of cannabis can produce all different properties, and they all have different effects. Some of these properties are recreational and psychedelic, however, that is not to take away from the objectively important values that it can provide as medicine.